We finally get to wave goodbye to the 2025 season for this Huskies squad that went 3-9, filled with a lot of teams would say ups and downs. I don't really think there was a whole lot of ups. A lot of downs, though. Quarterback play was brutal. Telly Johnson, this team's top offensive weapon, missing a decent chunk of the season. Wasn't even the leading rusher. This offense as a whole was bottom of the country in just about every statistical category outside the top 130 in points and in yards and in all these other assets of the game. Defensively, though, things were at least statistically a little bit better. Jelani Williams having a 12-sack season on paper maybe doesn't look so bad for the overall yardage, 30th passing defense in the country, but you maybe don't have to pass the football that much when you're winning by double digits game after game. So looking at the rest of the nation, Cade Klubnik takes home the Heisman Trophy, and the national championship is a fun Oklahoma-Texas matchup, but Texas takes it. And before hopping into the roster moves and all the stuff that's going to happen, because this team is going to have a lot of turnover, there's not going to be many teams in the entirety of the FBS put more turnover than this NIU squad, because I would imagine a lot of players are going to be on their way out. But you can take a look at what the rest of the country had to offer statistically. Jaden Ott having an 1,800-yard season, taking his team to the national championship. Won't be much of a surprise. You're not going to see many Huskies really at all at the top of any of these lists. So when we're looking at this team, what we have to cover and what we have to deal with, it's very obvious that yeah, the coaching staff, while Coach Easy did have to hastily throw things together, he's going to get the opportunity to bring in his own guys, his own coordinators, his own scheme, his own stuff. He's going to be able to implement that. So even independent of all the players that could be joining and leaving this squad, the schematics of this team is going to look a lot different now that he's able to implement everything that he wants to do. On top of that, we're going to be graduating 19 seniors, including some really important guys to this team, like Jelani Williams, who had that 12-sack season. We're going to be going over a lot in this video, all the prospects that we highlighted throughout the season and their stories. We're going to see the next step in them and see where they end up landing. Some of them have already committed, some of them still to be determined, so we'll cover those guys. On top of that, obviously, every NIU player that's going to be leaving and coming in, we'll cover them and introduce you to the team for 2026. And on top of that, we'll have info from training camps and spring ball and all that other stuff to see who's going to be the next generation of Huskies, who's going to be the starters for next year, how certain incoming transfer portal players and freshmen are performing. So when we look at the conference champions, we could see at least things that pertain to us. Buffalo and Western Michigan was the conference championship. Buffalo took it home. They went 11-2. Western Michigan, we had a not so fun run-in with them at the end of last season, but yeah, they end up going 10-3 in a top 25 overall ranking. So the teams in the MAC are getting a little bit better. Toledo was really good last year. We had an awesome game against them. Obviously, there's some teams dwelling at the bottom like Kent State who we were able to beat, but teams like Buffalo, Western Michigan, Toledo, we want to close that gap. We were bottom 3 in the MAC last year, and we maybe don't have the expectations of going all the way up to top 3 next year, but we're hoping we can at least find ourselves in the mix for a bowl game potentially. And I think that's at least an optimistic look and semi-realistic too. I think if we can go from 3 wins to 6 wins next year, really does depend on who's going to be sticking around, because ever since the season ended, Coach Easy has gotten a lot of phone calls, and it's the typical stuff that you hear. You know, Coach, I think we need to talk. Coach, I have something to tell you. Coach, I have some thoughts right now. And you kind of get the sense that a lot of players are going to be hitting the portal. Why stay around at a 3-9 team? Systems changing. You committed to the previous coach in Thomas Hammock. You don't really have a lot of reasons to stay. So we start things off in the offseason with the fact that the coaching staff is going to be taking some changes. No surprise there. Defensive coordinator could have stuck around, but I don't think the defense was amazing, regardless of what the statistics said. Again, meaningful defense is a lot more important than garbage time defense and the shortening of the games. And, you know, even then the run defense wasn't great. Key scenarios defense kind of broke down in a lot of situations. Pass rush was good, though. That's the thing I can really say, is the pass rush was nice. Now, we tried to get Sam Pittman to be our offensive coordinator. He formerly was at NIU very long ago as an offensive lines coach, so we thought we could maybe bring him in. No, he declines. Aaron Watson, though, will be the defensive coordinator. Having to go through more of our backup option at the offensive coordinator's spot. We had a few guys that we were eyeing. Obviously, the crop isn't really all that strong for us, and the interest isn't really all that vast, but Ricky Rain is going to be the offensive coordinator. Formerly a Old Dominion head coach, was at Penn State from 2014 to 2019, and all the way back in the early 2000s, late 90s, was a quarterback at Cornell, and he has a lot of stuff to him that is definitely going to make this a massive upgrade for us. Ricky Rain definitely going to help us out on the offensive side of the football when it comes to scouting, talent development, and talent acquisition. We love to see that. So already, I feel like first check on the list, improvements in the coaching staff, and I think that things will be a lot more stable next year, at the very least on offense, where things are its most important and most crucial to be better. You can't go out there as Alejandro Easy and have an offensive reputation and have a bottom 5 offense in the country. So we move on to the really big part. Frank Stye is going to commit before recruiting starts, so nice to have an extra guy on the board. But players leaving, yeah, we kind of hinted at what the potential was, and this is where the biggest blow to this team comes. How about a grand total of 49 players exiting this school? 30 via the transfer portal, 19 via graduation. Josh Hulse is gone. Telly Johnson and Jalen Poe gone in the portal, not getting them back. That's already bad enough. Then you go wide receiver, our top pass catcher from last year, LaDon Bryant. He's going to the transfer portal. We'll get to keep Gary Givens, I guess, but top tight end, top 2 tight ends even, gone. Offensive lineman, our only competent offensive lineman, Evan Malcor, he's transferring. Now, the rest of the offensive line, I'm not really crying about losing these guys, but we need depth, we need players, and when you're losing majority of your offensive linemen, not great to see. Now, on the defensive side of the football, more so the defense was filled with graduations. We had a bit more of an upperclassman defense, so a lot of the departures on defense are more so via graduation, like Jelani Williams, some of our linebackers. But cornerback, Jacob Finley, our best player, someone who could easily go to a major program and be a starter for them. No surprise that he's transferring. And with all of these players gone, you start to wonder, like, how are we going to fill in all these spots? If 49 players are leaving, we can only bring in 35 at most, so we're going to have a pretty shallow roster for next year. On top of that, it's not just the quantity of players, it's you lose one of your starting quarterbacks, you lose your top 2 running backs, your top receiver, your top tight end, your top offensive lineman, your top cornerback and player overall. Miles Thompson's also gone, our number 2 corner. We lost everybody, basically. And the message from Coach Easy was pretty simple. We're not going to force players to be on this team if they don't want to be here. So we're going to see where these players end up landing. Josh Hulse, he's going to be going to UL Monroe, and interestingly enough for him, he's actually going to end up being the starting quarterback at UL Monroe, so good for him. Jalen Poe will take his talents to Kentucky, so he's transferring up, and he's going to be a part of a deep backfield at Kentucky. Speaking of deep backfields, Telly Johnson is going to Navy. He's going to have to fight for carries there, but he wanted to go to a team where they can run the football a decent amount. LaDon Bryant's going to end up going to Wake Forest, so a nice spot for him to land, and we'll see how much opportunity he gets there. Jake Applegate's going to go to North Texas. He'll be the starting tight end. 2 of our players really hit big in the portal. Evan Malcor's going to go to Illinois to be the starting left tackle in the Big Ten. Credit to him for that. Miles Thompson's going to go to Toledo, so we're actually going to have to deal with Miles Thompson in the future. And then for Jacob Finley, how about going to Auburn to be the starting nickel cornerback in the SEC? You can't blame him going from NIU to Auburn and to be a legit starter at Auburn. So, on one hand, we're happy for guys like Malcor, and we're happy for guys like Finley. Good opportunities for them. On the other hand, though, it's leaving us to pick up the pieces and figure out what the heck are we going to do. So looking at the transfer portal, the thing that is nice is a lot of players are interested in joining along this team because there's just a lot of opportunities to play. So we're looking at what we have to upgrade and what we have to figure out. Well, quarterback, I mean, at least Jalen Macon stuck around. That's cool, I suppose. But running back, we're down our top two. Receivers, we needed receiver help even before LaDon Bryant went, so we're going to have to look there. Miles Kendrick is one of only 3 receivers available. Tight end, though. A lot of tight ends want to come here. That's a nice sign to see, and we're going to definitely try to attack the best tight ends that we can. The worst part, though, basically not a single offensive lineman in the transfer portal wants to join us. That is brutal, considering the offensive line was already our weakest spot on this team, and not a single transfer portal player will be joining us. When you go to the defensive line, another prevalent spot is the edge rushers. Edge rushers, a lot of them want to come here. We're definitely going to try to target at least 1 or 2 of them. Linebackers, we got some options at linebacker, which is also awesome to see because we graduated a couple of guys there. Cornerback is also going to be a massive need. We lost our top 2. Outside of Jacob Finley, Miles Thompson being our number 2 corner was already less than ideal. Well, he's gone and Jacob Finley's gone. We're left with nobody at the top at cornerback, and we have some options in the portal, Bakari Swain being the top one. So I'm overall pretty satisfied with the amount of interest that we drew from the portal, that we actually were drawing players that aren't just 1-year stopgaps. There are some of those, obviously, but there are also players that genuinely have interest and maybe will stick around for a couple of seasons even. We really got to prioritize the assets that we use, though, because of the transfer portal giving us some interest. We had to knock a couple of freshmen and prospects off of our board to make room for these guys. Again, 49 players gone. Max only 35 are coming in, so we have to make room, and we have to really pick and choose where we want to get players and where we want to upgrade and where we want to at least just try to fill in some of the holes. And unfortunately, like I said, offensive line isn't going to be an option, basically. I mean, we could really go all in on freshman offensive linemen, but are they really even going to be that much better than some of the other options that we have? Not immediately, maybe in the long-term future, but I think we just have to make do with the fact that the offensive line is going to be a struggle next year as well. Now, when it comes to these non-transfer portal players, we're going to definitely be going as aggressive as possible for the few offensive linemen that we have. Also, on top of that, quarterback situation. Jalen Macon is around, but I don't know if we really want to roll with Jalen Macon next year. I wasn't overly thrilled with the players that were interested us in the portal. There was about like 3 or 4 QBs interested. Wasn't really dying to give them opportunities to be on the board. So when you look at what the quarterback incoming situation could look like, right now we have JD DeVoe on the board, and the other one is the very divisive Cash Riley, who we covered in a in-season recruiting deep dive. So we'll have to see if Cash Riley wants to maybe bypass some better schools to have an opportunity to play earlier, because I think of any of the teams in the nation that he could potentially go to that are Division I FBS, he may have the best chance to play at NIU, unless Jalen Macon takes massive strides forward, which I thought he played better after getting benched. I thought he had a really nice performance against Toledo. I thought he was really up and down in the Kent State game, had some really nice plays, though. I think, you know, it's looking like he probably will be the day one starter, but I don't think that the leash is going to be nearly as long. Last season, he got a couple of games before we benched him. This year, I'm not going to be giving him that long of a leash. Competition is 100% open. Now, running back is a spot that is really important and really crucial to this team. This is a squad that had Telly Johnson and Jalen Poe combined for roughly 1,000 yards, and you know, for a team that was constantly losing and having to throw the ball more than they would like, and Telly Johnson being injured and Jalen Poe having to handle a heavy workload at times, we really need a starting running back. And unfortunately, the transfer portal, a lot of guys were considering, but not a lot of guys were necessarily interested in us. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to outsource a starting running back. But maybe you look inwards and you say, hey, Amir Smith had some nice moments as the number 3 back last season. Maybe you look on the board, you see that we have Coker, we have Roxy Kennedy, who we covered earlier on in the season. Maybe one of those guys can be a player for us if they decide to commit. Wide receiver is the only spot that really inspires a level of confidence in us right now, since we already have Jalen Leanne already officially committed to the squad. So Jalen Leanne is going to walk in and be a starter, whether it is 1, 2, or 3. But I mean, at least, like I said, we kept Gary Givens, who was a semi-productive receiver for us last year. So I was really disappointed with LaDon Bryant going. I thought LaDon Bryant, given the opportunity, given the fact that he wasn't some superstar level player, that he wasn't some guy who was going to be able to walk into a bigger program and be a starter. I mean, even right now at Wake Forest, he's going to be in the mix for like maybe wide receiver 4. I thought Bryant, after the successful season that he had this past year, would have preferred to stay because he could still be a starter for us, but unfortunate. And like I said, with Coach Easy's message being, we're not going to force anyone to be on the team if they don't want to be on the team. And, you know, you could have maybe go and try to convince them, make false promises, pick up the phone and say, hey, you know, stay here, we'll do this, stay here, we'll promise you that, we'll give you this many touches, we'll try and turn things around, but you're not going to guarantee success, you're not going to guarantee anything. If you want to go, you're going to go, and they're going to wish them luck in their next program, and they're going to wish LaDon Bryant luck at Wake Forest. We're going to wish Jacob Finley luck at Auburn, but we're not going to try to force anyone that doesn't want to be here to stay. So we had to, you know, remove some players off the board and maybe add up some more spots available for some guys in the secondary. Trevor Holton, by far the best safety that is interested in us. So coming over from Georgia maybe would be a nice pickup for us. And we add Miles Graham to the board as well at linebacker. We're really putting all of our eggs right now in the Vakari Swain basket. And as we advance over to the next week of recruiting, still no outright commits, but a lot of good progress being made. There's some really quality players that we could go and grab right now. Vakari Swain is our top prize, is our top target right now. And Cooper Flanagan, the number 1 tight end that was interested in us in the portal, is also looking pretty nice. Trevor Holton very quickly says, hey, I can go be a starting safety here. I might be a little bit interested. With these other players that are currently locking us out due to deal breakers, we're still number 1 on some of their boards. And when it comes to offensive linemen, I just need to keep as many on the board as possible because we need just bodies at this point. This team has less than 10 offensive linemen rostered at this point. So gotta go and do what you can, and there's very likely going to be a spot where somebody or multiple people are going to be starting at offensive linemen that maybe have no business to be starting, which is definitely going to set up whoever our quarterback is for a bit of failure. We're in a fight right now. Miles Kendrick, a freshman wide receiver, really in a battle with him, but we're in that top 3, and it's a 2-man race right now. JJ Hanna, freshman edge rusher, transferring over. Maybe we can go and snag him. We're looking pretty solid there. But we advance to the next week, and David Avant, a wide receiver from Illinois, is going to commit. On top of that, we got Miles Kendrick at wide receiver, so 2 wide receivers coming in, which is huge. Owen Chambliss is going to be moving over in the portal to NIU as well. So 3 commits on the board going into the final week of recruiting. And 2 of those guys, Chambliss and Miles Kendrick, are big acquisitions. A negative, though, right now, Jordan Ross, we're kind of slipping behind Troy, and he would have been, if he commits a number 1 edge rusher for this team, would immediately slot into Jelani Williams' spot. And we're really trying to see if we can steal him in the last week. But we're looking really good on guys like Miles Graham, looking good on Vakari Swain, looking good on Trevor Holton, looking good on a lot of these other players. So that's the one pitch we got. If you want to play, join our school because you're going to be able to play day 1. And that's where you go and transfer from Georgia, from Notre Dame, from Florida, these top schools. Unfortunately for us, though, Reggie Kilroy, he decommitted from our school and now is basically not even considering us. Reggie Kilroy, a couple weeks ago, was verbally committed, it seemed like, or signed with us, and well, now we got to throw him off the board because we're not going to be able to get him. So, you know, tight end room takes a bit of a hit. Unfortunate, but we're going to see if Cooper Flanagan can at least commit and be a 1-year fill-in for us. We are running out of points. We are running out of time. And with a loaded board and a lot of decisions still needing to be made, we get to turn our attention to National Signing Day. We got a couple of last-second additions to the board, just trying to scrape together as much as we can. But with National Signing Day looming, we get to see the next crop of NIU Huskies moving in to this school will be Avery Marion, a 2-star wide receiver. We have Roy Tiffin, a 2-star quarterback, so he'll be a depth. Shaq Alba, a linebacker safety hybrid type. Vakari Swain is going to be joining the squad, which is a massive addition. Top of that, J.D. DeVoe, some quarterback options for us. About DeMar Coker, running back, definitely needed that. Even though Reggie Kilroy decommitted, we do get Deion Cutting at tight end, Matthew Boyce to fill in the center spot potentially for some depth. Robert Willis will try to move him around, see where he fits in. Leon Granger, another running back, get some depth in there. Joey Jamerson, wide receiver out of Iowa. And then we got Orleans Clinton, cornerback from Colorado, might get some playing time early on. Trevor Newton at linebacker. And then Andre Nadi at kicker as well. We also got transfer portal players. Miles Graham at linebacker from Florida, huge pickup. Trevor Holton, safety, is welcoming to the team. Cooper Flanagan out of Notre Dame, welcome to the tight end room. Thomas Collins, defensive tackle. And we have Kiki Onyemata, a freshman guard coming in. JJ Hanna, edge rusher. And that is going to fill out this recruiting class. We missed out on Jordan Ross. So that was one player we missed out on. And then second, we missed out on Greg Myers. So that's 33 players coming in. I think overall that's pretty solid. 33 out of 35, and you filled in a couple of other spots too. There's some players that committed that we haven't yet brought up that we'll introduce you to, but we have some other known prospect storyline guys that were making their decisions as well. But when you look at where this team overall ranked in the nation, the overall recruiting class for the Huskies is 67. Very happy with that. When you look at overall recruiting, it was 48th. And then when it comes to the transfer portal, 8 players coming in, 84th overall class. And just to show you where some of the best players in the nation ended up landing, Colin Simmons and Kendrick Falk end up transferring. A couple of other players, Darian Mensah is going to be going to Texas. We have a lot of talented guys that we obviously had no chance of getting. Rocco Beck is going to Alabama to be their quarterback. Dorian Fleming, who we ran into this season, is going to be moving teams. But what about some of the other premier players that we covered throughout the season? Some of the top prospects and top storylines in the entire country. One of them, the big one, being the Comella brothers. We already know TJ went to Wisconsin, but JJ stunned the nation as he is going to be committing to Minnesota, which was a absolute shocker. The two brothers dreamed of going to being the starting quarterback of Wisconsin. That spot only was available to one, but just because you didn't get to go to Wisconsin does not mean you get to go to their rival school in Minnesota, and he is going to see some backlash probably from the family. All of the family is Wisconsin fans, but he's going to Minnesota, and we'll be seeing the Comella brothers go at it head to head in a couple of years' times. I doubt TJ and JJ are both going to be starters in year one, but it shouldn't be long before they are. So when it comes to TJ, obviously very early in the season he held firm. He's going to Wisconsin, and I think he feels a little hurt by his brother going to the rival school. You didn't have to go there. You could have went to another Big Ten school. You could have went somewhere else. Why Minnesota? Maybe some animosity brewing between the two brothers, as some would call it a betrayal on the family fandom, and some would say, hey, he's just going to the spot that he feels is best for him, and maybe that's just motivating himself to take down the team that he formerly loved growing up as a kid that now his brother's starting at. But it's not all about the quarterbacks. Let's go to the running back position, and the controversial Blaze Carlisle, the little speedster, is going to be headed to Colorado, and Coach Prime has got himself a dynamic weapon to deal with. His game-breaking speed has been on display all summer camp, and it has been a joy to watch for Colorado fans, and they're going to definitely get to use him a lot in his freshman season. Won't be the out-and-out starter, but should see time as the return specialist and gadgety type of player for them. So big landing for Colorado, and we'll see if they can get creative with one of the fastest players in the nation. Move over to wide receiver. Dieter Keaton is going to be going to Penn State. The slot extraordinaire is going to be lining up in the slot day one at Penn State. He's another one that's been really impressive early on in camp, so that's what you're expecting with a 5-star wide receiver, one of the top 3 guys coming out of high school, and definitely the best slot guy in all of high school, so it'll be a big year for Dieter Keaton potentially if he gets the opportunity to do what he did all throughout his high school career. As we move on to, how about the other side of the football now? Number 1 edge rusher Robert Morello's going to take his talents to Georgia, and for a team that's already put out guys like Trayvon Walker being number 1 overall draft picks and has had a lot of edge rush talent, this guy, from a pure pass rushing standpoint, his rush moves, his bend, his bag of moves that he has is probably deeper than a lot of Georgia edge rushers that we have seen over the years. He is not just a great athlete, he is a great overall pass rusher that doesn't need quite as much development as the guys that have come before him. What about guys that we missed out on? And this one hurts because we already covered Samuel Cabello's committing to Bowling Green, but after you've seen how things operated for us in the transfer portal with no offensive linemen wanting to come here and a limited amount of freshmen coming in, Cabello could have been a day 1 starter for us, and instead, at a 3-star guard, he might be a day 1 starter at Bowling Green, somebody that we'll have to run into this upcoming season. And other players that we missed out on, Alani Varuna, the compact run-stopping linebacker, doesn't hurt quite as much to miss out on due to the fact that we ended up with Chambliss and Miles Graham in the transfer portal, but we still would have loved to have a freshman, one of our guys that we can come in and develop instead. He'll be going to Western Michigan after their season going 10-3. They add a really nice linebacker. We also already covered Sean Oden, the Richard Sherman clone, basically, going to Alabama, but I mean, he has been as advertised at Bama, and he has earned himself some early playing time. Won't be a starter for them, but he should see some opportunities in the dime package for Alabama. And then when you go to Julius Weston, the number 1 player in the state of Illinois, a guy like him is someone we aspire to get to be able to land the number 1 player in our state. Instead, he's going to be going to Michigan, and he's actually earned the starting safety job day 1, and he is exactly what Michigan was looking for, is that rangy center field, athletic, and zone heavy safety. He is going to see a lot of playing time early on. Now let's take a look at the team that we have put together. Jalen Macon at quarterback. Reports coming out of camp is that Jalen Macon was pretty okay. He had his moments, and just like he did last year, he had his moments of real flashy good plays, and then he had his misses. But Macon, definitely the most mobile quarterback that we have and should be day 1 starter. The controversial Cash Riley does end up landing at NIU, as we were the only team that could really promise him an opportunity to compete for a starting job. The thing with Riley, though, he's got all the arm strength in the world, and he is as reckless as it gets, but he's just not ready. He had a very up and down camp. He made some really great throws, and then he had a lot of passes that sailed on him. When Riley is on, he makes some beautiful plays, but when he is off, it is some ugly looking football. Objectively, he's just not ready to play, but he has an opportunity to compete and be at least the backup for this team. If you're seeing Riley play in year 1, be worried, because that means Jalen Macon wasn't that good. But Riley does come out and make plays that no other quarterback on this team can make. All the number 2 reps really went to Riley, so J.D. DeVoe didn't have a whole lot of opportunities to play, but he shows us some potential athletic upside at the quarterback spot. And how about running back Roxy Kennedy landing at NIU? And if there was any player in the entirety of spring ball that was impressive, it was Roxy Kennedy. He was the most impressive player on offense. He was exactly what we wanted him to be, a high floor running back, and we thought maybe we could keep Poe or Johnson. Thought we may be able to keep one of them. Considering both of them are gone, the running back job was wide open. And on top of that, we had a late arriving commit. How about running back Martin Elena, who is an absolute spark plug at the running back position. Just more of a straight line speed type of player, not all that creative, just a 2-star out of Michigan. Very late commit, but still somebody that we're happy to have, and he is the fastest running back on this team, so he might see opportunity even as a kick returner down the line. As now Miles Kendrick, one of our big transfers, 3-star out of Indiana, is going to be this team's number 1 wide receiver, and for a guy as young as he is, he has a lot of tools that we think can really translate to him being a true number 1 wide receiver for this team. We're really excited about what Miles Kendrick brings to this team, as he is going to actually give us a lot of confidence in our receiving room, way more than we thought we were going to have. We thought it was just going to be a one-man show with Jalen Leanne, but it's not going to be. Miles Kendrick gave us some real hope. Gary Givens is going to be this team's number 3 wide receiver because the number 2 wide receiver will be Jalen Leanne. After a very rocky past year of his life, he is going to be landing at NIU, getting the opportunity to play day 1 and being able to stay home close to his sister. He gets 1 day off of practice every week to go take care of his sister, so he does get less time in practice and less reps, but the reps he does play and the reps he does have are impressive, so much so that he is definitely going to be a day 1 starter for this team. Jalen Leanne, one of the most talented players this NIU school has seen in a very long time, and we're so happy to have him. The receiving core could be really exciting. Now about Cooper Flanagan at tight end, a former 4-star tight end in the 2023 recruiting class, the number 11 overall tight end in 2023. Didn't get a lot of playing time at Notre Dame. You know how Notre Dame operates. They got a lot of talented tight ends constantly coming through that building. He got lost in the shuffle, but it's not because he's not talented. He's just not in the right spot for him. Notre Dame, a national championship contending squad, we're going to give him an opportunity to be an out-and-out starter in his final season. We'll see what he's able to do. Steve Winey at edge rusher doesn't have a lot of people in his way for playing time as a true freshman. He's going to slot in as this team's number 1 edge rusher off the bench, and he had a very up and down camp, showed some flashes, but ultimately he has a limited ceiling. Kevin Session is going to be this team's number 2 edge rusher. The overall edge rush room didn't really inspire us too much, as, you know, losing Jelani Williams hurts, but he's going to at least see plenty of playing time. The number 1 guy right now, JJ Hanna at edge rusher, former 3-star defensive lineman, the 111th overall D lineman, is going to be the number 1. How about Thomas Collins, though, on the interior? This is a really interesting player from Oregon State, the number 1 player from Sweden in 2022. He was at Oregon State, now the out-and-out starter here at NIU, and had a really solid camp, and we're really excited about this defensive line duo because freshman Baraka Rugamba is a absolute surprise for us. He was somebody who very much has a low floor, but he played so impressively in camp as a true nose tackle gap filler that we are actually going to see a lot of him this season. I didn't think that that would be the case, but Rugamba has a lot to offer this team. Now the linebacking core, a place that does excite me. Owen Chambliss, former 3-star linebacker from Utah, San Diego State, now here at NIU. He's going to be joined by true freshman Frank Stye, who showed that he actually does have day 1 playing capabilities. Now both those linebackers, Chambliss and Stye, pretty solid, but the guy who impressed us so much, I think the best player not named Roxy Kennedy in the entirety of camp, was that of linebacker Miles Graham, former 4-star player from Florida. He was the 9th overall linebacker in 2024. He's coming over from Florida, and he was just all over the field all throughout summer, all throughout spring. This is a player that I think actually has true star potential, like all-American potential. And when you want to talk about pure potential, about cornerback, number 1 corner, Vakari Swain, the former number 9 overall athlete in 2023, guy who has two-way possibilities. He could play offense and he could play defense. We're going to slot him in at cornerback, though, and transferring over from South Carolina, he has endless levels of athleticism. Unfortunately, much like last year, it's a one-man show at corner. Vakari Swain this year, Jacob Finley last year, because the number 2 overall corner is not going to be anybody special. Orleans Clinton, though, true freshman's going to get a start in the nickel. It's a very shallow cornerback room, so Orleans Clinton, despite not being ready, is going to play. At safety, Trevor Holton, coming over from Georgia, is another player that played pretty well coming over from a big school. You could definitely see some of these players, Notre Dame, Georgia, Florida, big school experience, and they're a lot more day 1 ready, and we're happy to have him. Now at the other safety spot, Shaq Alba is a linebacker safety hybrid type. We have him slotted in at strong safety. Didn't have a great camp, but the options for us are not all that strong. Our final notable commit was also at safety, 2-star safety Masarena Alea, the Nigerian mega athlete who has all the physical tools in the world, 6'3", speedy, basically dominated all the individual combine drills, but has just no actual ability to play the sport of football since he's new to the sport. Just his 2nd year playing the sport of football, and I mean, he doesn't even really have a designated position. He's more just a chase and run type of guy. He's definitely getting the red shirt. He has no real business playing day 1. So taking a look at the day one depth chart, Jalen Macon's the starter. It's a short leash for him. Roxy Kennedy has earned the running back job. And at wide receiver, Miles Kendrick, Jalen Leanne, Gary Givens, and then tight end Cooper Flanagan. Actually, I feel like a really nice group of weapons. The offensive line, though, with Evan Malcor leaving and not really anybody big coming in, I'd say the offensive line might even be worse this year. But they were at least not a disaster throughout spring ball. Defensively, I really am interested in guys like Thomas Collins and Baraka Rugamba, and then the linebacking core has me excited. Frank Sty, Owen Chambliss, and then our guy, Miles Graham, is going to be getting that captain dot on his helmet. Vakari Swain at corner gives us a lot of excitement, and Trevor Holton at safety as well. I think this team has a lot of really nice players that were able to be brought in from the transfer portal. I mean, Trevor Holton, Vakari Swain, Chambliss, Miles Graham, Miles Kendrick, and all of those players, and Cooper Flanagan, all 6 of those guys, legitimate potential impact players for us. And then for the freshmen, Jalen Leanne, Roxy Kennedy, we're going to have Shaq Alba, Frank Sty, all these guys starting as well. This team did a complete 180. The amount of players that were starting last year that are starting this year, not all that many. So this team is completely turned upside down, and I think has a lot of talent, though. I do think the players that we got in the portal are really nice. Now, the schedule is not going to be the easiest. We're going to be going on the road at Rutgers week 1, and the big matchup in week 4, we're taking on number 1 Ohio State on the road, and we're going to run into Jeremiah Smith. So, hey, Vakari Swain, credit to you. We're happy to have you as the number 1 corner. Let's see how you do when Jeremiah Smith walks out that tunnel and lines up one-on-one across from you. But overall, I think this team, would I say better? I think so. I think it's a better team, and I think that that's an impressive feat to have considering you lost 49 players. And regardless if the team talent-wise is better top to bottom, I think performance-wise they will be better. The scheme will be different. And we got a lot of players that I think have a lot more upside this time around. Even some of the transfer portal players that aren't going to be full-time guys 4 years, but Miles Kendrick being still really young, and Miles Graham, and some of those are the guys I'm really excited for. And then we get to see the debuts of Roxy Kennedy. We get to see the debut of Jalen Leanne, who I am just so excited for, and he has been every bit the star level player that we have hoped he was going to be so far in training camp. We're going to see if he can match that once he gets on the field for official action. The negatives, though, I think quarterback is definitely going to be interesting. While Macon is going to get the start, I think that the leash is, I've said it a couple of times, really short. I didn't want to go and throw Cash Riley out there day one because he's just not ready. And also, do you want your 4th career start to be against Ohio State on the road? Do you want to throw him out there into the fire day one? He's a reckless, gunslinging quarterback who it could get really ugly. The issue is, though, Jalen Macon's already been benched once before last season. It could happen again. And this time around, we're not going to be as hesitant to do it. If that happens, Cash Riley, it could be a really disastrous season from the quarterback. We'll see how that combines with the offensive line. So let me know what you all thought of the offseason, the additions of this team, the storyline players, and who you're most excited for. For me, definitely Jalen Leanne, but maybe you're excited for somebody else. I hope you all enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe is all that stuff. It's very helpful, especially with these videos that are a lot more extra effort than a regular Dynasty video where I just hop in and play the games, you know, creating the stories, creating the highlight reels, creating all the graphics and stuff. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.